What's up guys, welcome back to another episode of Parkour Journeys. Thank you so much for joining me again. We are bringing you another tutorial because you guys have been really enjoying the tutorials at the moment. We're gonna go hardcore on fear today. We're gonna dive really deep into all aspects from physical to mental and everything in between. This isn't gonna be some watered down crap 5 top tips that you've heard a million times before. I'm going to be diving into my 12 years of parkour experience and show you exactly what it takes. As someone who's really struggled with fear, I'm going to show you what it takes to overcome those mental barriers, those fear obstacles. Let's do it. So I've been dealing with fear for quite a long time. I've been practicing parkour for 12 years now, and I'm constantly looking at my mind and my body and trying to find out and study and work out exactly why I can go for jumps sometimes and I can't go for jumps other times, and what it really takes to be able to push past that fear barrier, to expand your comfort zone. And I want to go over all of that with you now. Now, like you might look at my stuff, and I've done some pretty, what I would consider scary, big stuff in my time. I'm obviously not one of the best, but what I've found is that it's more, rather than looking at someone who has no fear, it's more important to look at someone who's dealt with a lot of fear and learned to overcome it. Because a lot of the time, those people who naturally have less fear, well, they don't really know what they're doing to overcome the fear that they have. So that's why I feel like I have a lot to offer in this area, and I know that I do because I've dug into my mind and I know exactly what it takes to overcome that fear, and I want to share it with you now. By the way guys, if you're new here, we don't usually do tutorials. We usually sort of travel around from town to town when it's not locked down, meeting new people, learning to train in new ways, taking on their styles of training, and we film a vlog and we take you through all of our mental aspects, what's scaring us about the jump and how we're overcoming that. And it's all filmed in like a really nice cinematic way. So if this sounds like something you'd enjoy, if you've just found this channel, then I think it's well worth subscribing. So you should subscribe now. Never miss a video, Tuesday, 5:30 every single week. Subscribe now. You won't regret it, guys. I really think that, that this is gonna offer some good value to you. You're gonna enjoy these videos. So subscribe now, don't put it off. So the video is gonna have a little bit of a structure. We're gonna start from the more physical aspects of fear and slowly progress into those juicier, more mental aspects of fear, the things that you struggle with a bit the most. But I want to start in the physical realm. Even though the two are kind of meshed together, you can't really separate your mind and your body. They are one thing. But there is more physical aspects that we can take care of first before we move into the more juicy sort of mental aspects that are a little bit more deep. All right, so the first concept I want to bring to you is kind of a fun one, and the name is kind of silly. I called it building the special bar. Now, the silliness doesn't take away from how important this technique is. Basically, in the Tony Hawk's games that you used to play, you used to, every time you'd like land a trick, you'd build what they called the special bar. You'd have that in the top right corner. And the more you built your special bar, the easier it was to land harder tricks. And this is actually an incredibly powerful mental tool when you go out and you do your training, because it builds on something called the winner effect. And the winner effect is a phenomenon where it basically means that the more you win, the more you win. So you take on small challenges that are well within your capability and then execute them perfectly, which allows you to feel more comfortable in the environment you're in, build more trust with yourself, and then slowly but surely work your way into the more harder moves of the day. So what I see a lot of when people go out training, or when I go out training, is you get to a spot, you get super excited, and you've done your warm up and you immediately go to the biggest jump that you know you want to conquer in that space, something that you've not done before. And this is a really crucial error, because I mean, it's easy for those big jumps to grab your attention, and for those, exciting challenges to be the first thing you want to do, and you're like, I can't stop thinking about it, it's what I need to do right now. But you need to put that off until you have built up a proper confidence in your body for the day, until you've built up that special bar. So what you need to do is obviously start with your kind of warm-up moves, the really easier sort of thing, but then go into like an intermediate space where you're kind of pushing yourself to that, that top 90%, and you're doing the moves that you can do within that 90% bracket, and you're executing and landing those, and then your body is in a place where it's more used to the environment and it's used to being thrust into those scenarios, and then you don't immediately overkill your fear barrier and push yourself right out of your comfort zone, because it's basically like slowly building up your comfort zone until you're in a place where actually you're ready to take on a new challenge. Because when you're fresh out of the gate, like, your body isn't just naturally in a state where it can go for the biggest thing that it's ever gone for. It needs to be warmed up. It needs to be put into a place where it accepts the environment and it accepts the space that it's now in and the challenges you're going to now present for it. So if you've ever come up against a jump where you've just gone out straight away and you're like, why can't I do this jump? And then all of a sudden you go into this downward spiral of not being able to do the jump at all, and it gets further and further away from you. That's because you've come in and immediately mentally conceptualized of the jump and just run through a load of thought patterns, rather than getting to a physical place where you've experienced moving your body right up until that 90% area, and then your body's like, oh yeah, there's not such a disconnect from your mind and your body. So it's so important to go out and build up your special bar first. It's like number one thing that you should do. Get comfortable with your environment, get comfortable in your body, moving it to its hardest degree again, and then you can start taking on those mental challenges once you're comfortable, once your body's in that space. So the next tip I want to talk about is building your trust and building up your momentum and keeping your word. So essentially, a lot of us, what happens is when we go for a big jump, and we've all been in that space where we're about to go for like the biggest jump, something that we want to conquer, and then we back out. So you've decided you want to go, you're running up to it, and then just something in you just stops you from going. Now, the problem with this is that it actually has a momentum behind it. So essentially, the more you don't commit, the more you don't commit. So you don't want to be in that place where every single time you run up, your mind has the option to back out. You want to try and get yourself into a space where if you've decided that you're going to commit, then you're definitely going to commit every time. And like I say, this is built over time with momentum. So what you want to do is get yourself into a place where you're meeting that appropriate edge. And I'll talk a little bit more about your appropriate edge later on in the video, but you want to get yourself into a place where you're doing a jump that is just on the edge of what you can do, and you want to execute it. You want to get yourself into this place where you're ready to go, and then you want to run, jump, land, and execute. And you want to go around and try and do that with a bunch of different jumps that you've done before that are really right on the edge of things. And you want to make sure that when you're ready to go and you've decided you're going to go, then you go. Because what happens is you learn to build up that trust in yourself, the trust in your word, that once you've said, I'm gonna go, then you're gonna go, and there's no option not to go. So once you've done all your necessary preps, don't say to yourself that you're gonna go too early, and then you can decide and be like, okay, now's the time I'm gonna move, now's the time I'm gonna go, and you go for it. Now, the reason that we do this though is because it's super important to build up the momentum of going for it. So the more you go for it, the more you'll be able to go for it. You understand what I'm saying? So every time that you back out of a jump, every time that your body tells you no and you listen to it, or your mind tells you no and you listen to it, but you've already made the decision to go because you're being arrogant about, maybe you're saying you're going to go too early, or you just really want it but it's actually just about outside your capabilities, that will actually start bleeding into the things that you should be able to achieve, and stop you from doing those ones as well, because it has that momentum. So like I'm saying, you need to make sure that you're meeting that appropriate edge and just doing the jumps that you can only just do where you're in that place, and then you can build up this momentum, and then you can learn to trust yourself. It's such a big deal to be able to trust yourself when you say, I'm gonna go, and that means I'm gonna go no matter what. And believe me that you'll start building up this serious momentum where you don't even think, and you just bang, you just hit it straight away, because once you've decided to go, you're going, and that's that. So it's a dangerous one because it works both ways. Like I say, you can build momentum in the opposite direction, and the more you don't go, the more you won't go. And don't let this be an excuse. Don't start overthinking this in terms of oh no, if you once don't go, that's not ruined your momentum for life. But you want to make sure that you are building it in the right direction and don't let it happen again. The third thing I want to go over is something that I call, where possible, do something. So if you come up against a jump that you are totally terrified of, and you immediately start mulling over the potentialities, you start thinking yourself through it, and your mind runs away with itself and starts coming up with all the reasons why you can't do it, then before you know it, you're in this horrible mind state and you haven't taken any action, and like you withdraw more and more into yourself and more into your mind, coming up with these ideas, and before you know it, you've just got kind of like a mind battle going on rather than anything happening in the actual physical world. So where possible, do something. So take my Kong Pri, for example. What I'll always do, say I'm doing a rail Kong Pri, is the first step I'll do is I'll vault over the rail and then I'll jump to the place. So that's the first easy step that I can make to start preparing for the jump. And the next thing I'll do is I'll Kong up and then precision down to the rail or something like that, and cross the gap that way, and basically just find different ways to cross the gap. So where possible, you need to break it down into the chunks and do something and start gaining information as soon as possible. Real life information, like how it feels to cross the gap, or how it feels to go from like the highest point into the gap. All of these different things is going to help you gather real information and feed your mind with positive reasons why you can do something, rather than you being caught up and netted in all of this immediate mental chatter that goes on. So where possible, break it down, do something, and do that first before you just start talking yourself out of it. Fear can break out of a lot of different circumstances, and there's a ton of different reasons that it can come up. But one of the main reasons that it will come up is because you're actually not prepared for a jump. Now, depending on how well you know yourself, you're going to know kind of when this is, and you'll start learning more and more over time just how much, when you can really go for something or when you're really being a little bit too unrealistic. But being prepared for the jump is such a massive deal. So if you haven't been in a situation before, if you haven't been in an environment before, if you haven't come up against a jump that's similar before, then you're going to experience a hell of a lot more fear. So it's important to train for the specific jumps that you're trying to do, the specific tasks that you're trying to accomplish. You want to train for those so that you have that preparedness, and so that your mind isn't running over a million different scenarios that it doesn't know. It's like, oh, actually I've done this similar thing in this scenario and this similar thing in this scenario, so I can combine those and come up with a reasonable idea of what it actually takes to do this jump, rather than having no information and just being completely unprepared. This is another thing that comes from like injury. So I've had patellar tendonitis for a long time, and my fear level spiked massively when I know that I'm going to get knee pain on the impact, for example, or I'm going to get ankle pain. Now this is a big sign to actually listen to your body. Like, you probably shouldn't be going for a jump you're scared of when you've got an injury, because that's your body trying to protect you from the pain. So you have to know, are you really prepared to do this jump, or are you doing it for ego reasons? Are you doing it to show off? Are you doing it for that next Instagram clip? Or are you prepared to do this jump and you're actually nailing it for the sake of your own fear barriers and to overcome those exact fear barriers? So something that you want to do to continue being able to build up your momentum and smash through your fears and get comfortable with being uncomfortable is to discipline yourself in other areas of your life where the consequences are lower. So for example, if you are taking a cold shower in the morning and your mind is saying like, it sounds kind of like it's easy, but how many of you actually go and do this? And how many of you find it easy or don't struggle with it? Like going and taking a cold shower at 6 a.m. in the morning, like that's the kind of discipline that gets you more comfortable with being uncomfortable, because you wake up, it's already early and you've already disciplined yourself to, for example, get up without a snooze, and then you're going to tell yourself like, because I've decided it's happening, I'm getting in that cold shower no matter what my emotions say, no matter what my feelings say. And because it's in a low risk environment, like you're not going to hurt yourself by getting into a cold shower, you have absolutely no rational fears about it. It's all just mind created bollocks. So you know that if you practice that and you're like, your mind's saying no, I want to be comfortable, and you're deciding to push through and have that cold shower, for example, then you're going to be more used to being uncomfortable. And when you get outside, when you get up against that jump, your body and your mind is going to be like, yeah, actually I like being in uncomfortable situations, and yeah, actually I'm now going to push myself through this uncomfortable situation and make it comfortable, because I'm the kind of person who can do that, and that's what I've practiced, and now I'm going to do it here. So building up those disciplinary habits in your other aspects of your life, that's actually such a good tip. And it seems like it's so divorced from the situation, but actually it's, you know, every single action that you take in life, everything that you do builds the person that you are, and you are your actions. And so this is how you practice for being better outside, being better in your parkour. Leading on from that, and it's a sort of a similar point, and that is just to be as indulgent in fear as you can, as you are possible. Now, most people who do parkour, you kind of understand this anyway, because you're going out there, you're trying to test yourself. But the common mindset, like outside of parkour or just in general, that might feed into your parkour is that fear's bad and I should be scared of it, and I should stay in my comfort zone, and I should stay in like that area of my life, and why would I go somewhere that's going to scare me too much? And you see this a lot with more beginners, and they don't really understand yet that your fear should be like a compass pointing you right towards the thing that you want to do. That's where the growth is. That's how you're going to expand. You have to get to that edge. You have to find that point where you're actually like, no, I don't want to do this, and push through. That's the only way you grow. And the quicker you can get more comfortable with that aspect of it, and understanding that that's going to serve you and put you into this better place and make you a better person, the better. And you need to use that fear as a compass, because if you're running from it, then you're never going to grow. You're going to stay in your comfort zone, and you're not going to be getting more comfortable with being uncomfortable, and then you're never going to be able to do the jumps that you want to do. So just practice indulging in enjoying those fears. Go out and scare yourself as regularly as possible, basically. Which leads me on to talking about meeting your appropriate edge, like I touched on earlier. So meeting your appropriate edge basically means that you've got your circle of comfort, for example, right? Imagine you've got that circle of comfort, and you're basically just gonna try and get yourself right to the point where you're pushing that edge out. So you don't wanna be, it might seem really like you wanna actually be way out here and way past it, but what that can do is cause sort of traumatic experiences and actually scare you and reduce your comfort zone, which means that, so you might think that it's best to be doing the bigger and better stuff because it's way out here, but that's going to cause this sort of traumatic experience and actually bring your comfort zone further away, further down. And if you go too low and you hit your comfort zone, like you don't really hit the edge of your comfort zone, then you're actually, you're not actually growing, you're not actually expanding. So the point is to meet that edge and slowly push it so that it gets wider and wider. So you're getting to the point where you're scaring yourself just enough that you can overcome it and you can push past it. And don't trick yourself here, like really meet that edge, but don't push it too far. Don't do it for other people. Don't do it for the Instagram likes. Don't just be doing it so that you can be the best free runner in the whole world. You don't want to just get up to this space, traumatize yourself, and then come back and not really be able to do any real pushing and real growth. And you want to meet that appropriate edge, and you want to do it in the whole sphere as well, not just in one place. You want to push all your different aspects, all of your different movements, and you just slowly grow that comfort zone. You meet that appropriate edge. So what happens when you go to do a big jump that you're scared of, or you come up against a scenario that you're scared of? So essentially what happens is you see the scenario, and then immediately your mind starts coming up with a bunch of different mental images of you doing what it is you think you're going to do. So for example, like doing a big precision, you look at it and immediately you imagine yourself either doing it or all of the things that could go wrong with doing it, and your mind just starts running away with itself and you build up an anxious state. And these two kind of go hand in hand. So you see it, you maybe have like one or two thoughts about it, and all of a sudden your physiology just starts going bang, bang, bang. Your heart rate starts racing, your palms start getting sweaty. You might not even be aware of this. If you're not someone who's spent a lot of time acknowledging your body and acknowledging what you feel like, you might not even notice this happening. But what's happening is your adrenaline is spiking, your cortisol and stress levels are spiking in order to get you into that state where you're ready for anything. But we construe it as anxiety because we're so used to getting those fear stimuluses and doing nothing about it and not actually being in the moment, being with the feeling. And you get your sweaty palms, your heart starts beating, you start going into that fight or flight response, and that causes more thoughts, because the more anxious you are, the more your mind starts running away with yourself, because you're not taking any action, because you're not walking yourself through the steps or something like this. All of that energy is left to just congeal in your mind and start building up all these reasons why you can't do something. So what can we do about this? You start by seeing the jump, and then you have this physiological reaction. Now, where possible, you want to catch it as early as possible. So as soon as you see yourself start going into that tizzy, downward spiral kind of space, you want to stop and concentrate on your physiology. So what that means is to ground yourself in your body. So what you want to do is you're going to be taking really deep, slow breaths. So nice, slow breaths in and nice, slow breaths out. You're going to feel into your feet. You're going to feel your contact with everything. You're going to put your hands on like the wall, and you're going to feel into the texture of the wall. You're going to feel what the air feels like. This all sounds kind of like woo-woo and like whatever, but the point is that to get yourself out of fear, to get yourself into being able to do a jump, you want as little thoughts in your mind as possible. You want that mind to be clear, focused, and just taking in reality rather than taking in a bunch of stories that it tells itself over and over and over again, and excuses that they become to then not do the move. So the idea is to get your mind into a place where it's almost completely empty, and you do that by shifting your attention into reality and picking up more details about your physical environment. Because when you pick up more details about your physical environment, when you sort of undirect your ray of focus and put it on as many things in your body and around you as possible, your mind doesn't have as much energy, as much attention, as much focus on that mental chatter, those sort of mental thought patterns that keep running through your mind, because you're directing all your energy in that way. So you move your focus, you shift it into your body, you start noticing what your heartbeat is like, you start breathing and noticing what it feels like to breathe, and you do that and you actively slow down your breath, and then all of a sudden your adrenaline starts to go down and you start getting into a calm, focused state where actually all you can do is feel the environment around you. And you'll notice that what begins to happen is that your mind slowly but surely settles down and winds down, and you begin to hone in on exactly what it is that you're going to do. So it's important to concentrate on that physiology and get yourself into a state of no mind, less mind, no more thoughts, and just concentrating on the physiology around you and everything that's real. Something that massively helps with this is a meditation practice. So if you don't know about meditation, I highly recommend looking it up. It sounds a little bit woo-woo if you haven't heard about it before, but it essentially, in practical terms, what it does is it massively increases your focus, it massively reduces your anxiety, and it massively increases your ability to stay in that space where there's no mind and you are not constantly focused on all those thoughts that berate your mind over and over and over and over again. You get to that place where you're zen, you're relaxed, you're calm, and you're ready to do things rather than just being completely run by that mind state. And to strengthen that ability, you need a meditation practice every day. So the next concept I want to talk to you about is something called a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, basically what this means is that if you're thinking about something, then it's more likely to happen. Like, it's well known and well documented that visualization plays a massive role in what your body does. It has a massive impact in how your body feels. All of the top Olympic athletes, all of their coaches employ visualization exercises, because when you visualize something in your mind, your body reacts to a certain degree the same way it would react in that legitimate situation. So a self-fulfilling prophecy essentially follows these principles and means that when you are running a scenario through your mind, say you get stuck on a specific image of you falling over, then you are more likely to create that. Your body is more likely to tense up, not be loose, and not be ready to do the actions that you want to take. This is the thing, it's like your mind and your body, your body reacts to your mind and your mind reacts to your body, and they kind of work in unison, but you can do certain things in your body to control your mind and certain things in your mind to control your body. And this is one of those things where so the example I like to take is if you're, say, balancing along a rooftop, right? You're on a rooftop and you've got to balance along that top bit, or you're on a branch high in a tree and you're going to walk across it, right? If you are thinking about, oh shit, I'm going to fall off, oh look, that's a drop there, I could slip, I could fall, like you'll notice that you'll be like this, you'll be like a tight, stiff robot, and you won't be able to move, and you won't be able to walk along that thing with any kind of ease or any kind of balance, because your self-fulfilling prophecy is happening. You're more likely just to look and fall down. Like if you're balancing on a pole and you think, I have no balance, I can't balance, and I'm just going to fall off, and you just run it through your mind, falling off, concentrating on falling off, that's all you're concentrating on. It's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you're going to end up doing that because of what your mind is telling you to do, because you're telling yourself to do that. Like, your body is picking up the signals that that's what you want to do, because that's what you're running through your mind. So this is where you have to shift your focus onto what you're doing and start running those positive stories through your mind, make those into a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe that you're someone that has good balance, and you believe that you're going to make it from one end to the other, and there's no option, you're thinking, put one foot here, put one foot here, put one foot here, put one foot here. You try this, you go out and balance and try this, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It changes the entire game. You go from this stiff kind of wreck trying to balance on something to like, oh yeah, I know how to walk. And it just becomes a supernatural thing, which is crazy, because the only difference has been those thought processes in your mind. Now, the way to change this, and the way to tell yourself more positive stories, and this is another point that I want to make, is that once you've learned to calm yourself down and get yourself grounded in that physiology, the less that your mind starts talking to itself, the more you're in that current like nice space, the more that you can start feeding it positive stories actively. So you've got rid of your negative stories by grounding yourself in your physiology. With your meditation practice, you've gotten into your space where you've got no mind, and you're ready to face reality as it is. Then you can start feeding yourself these positive stories actively, and telling yourself, showing yourself in your mind what it is you're going to do, actively visualizing exactly what it is you're going to do and how you're going to do it and how it's going to go perfectly, because you've stripped yourself of the bullshit thoughts, and now you're moving into the more positive thoughts, and you're going to create that self-fulfilling prophecy. So all these tips, they're kind of linked up. You kind of want to use them in unison so that they work for each other. So build up those positive mind states and build up those positive stories, and start making those into your self-fulfilling prophecy, and just watch how your physiology changes. I can't, like, the one that will really show you this the most is by going out and trying to balance, and then just changing your attention, changing where you put your focus, and starting a new self-fulfilling prophecy. Something that's on the same lines as this is that you don't want to be someone who buys into their story. You don't want to be someone who's constantly creating these stories that stop you from doing what you're going to do. So say, for example, you're someone who says, I'm good at this, but I'm just, I'm scared of heights, or I'm someone who's scared of heights. I'm someone who is just not very good at doing precision jumps, so I can't do that. Now, this feeds into the same principle of self-fulfilling prophecies. The more you tell yourself you can't do something, the more in reality you can't do it. And it sounds like this is kind of a bit sort of out there, and it's like, oh, what really is that really how it works? Yes, this is how it works. You can look this up. This is well documented. This is exactly how it works. Your mind creates situations, and then your body follows. It's how we bring stuff into the world. It's how we imagine things and then build them. That's just how it works. So you don't want to be creating those negative stories for yourself. So if you might have a million reasons that seem exact, like super real to you in the moment, for you being someone who just isn't very good at Kongs, but all you're doing by telling yourself that is making yourself not very good at Kongs. You want that beginner's mind, as if you're fresh to parkour, you have no idea what it's all about, and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna try this. There's no immediate like, oh, I've done a bad one in the past, and so I'm now gonna do a bad one in the future. You want a present mind that stays in the moment. You want a beginner's mind, as if you're fresh to the sport, and that will give you what you need to stop attaching to those negative stories where you build an identity around not being able to do a jump, because that is the fastest way to not be able to do it. And it's such a silly thing that people like to do, because people like to have something that shows them, reflects their identity, and tells them who they are. And if you attach to stories like that, then they can be really powerful, and that's like a way that will always hold you back. And you can apply this to a lot of other areas in life, and I won't go too deep into it, but if you have stories that you tell yourself about your life and excuses that you make, then you are always going to follow that line and that set of excuses, and you're never going to grow, and you're never going to expand. But that's a little bit outside the scope of this video. Just try and use the principle. So when you go into a situation, one of the main things that you want to remember is to take with you only what you need. And that means that you have already set yourself a task. There is no need to pile on to that task by making it more difficult for yourself. So for example, say you've tried something, you tried like 3 times and you just can't get it. And like what happens is you start getting that frustration creep in, right? And so all of a sudden you're actually not just trying to do the jump, you're also getting angry with yourself about the fact that you can't do the jump. Now, do you think this is gonna help you? Absolutely not. Is it controllable? 100%. What people do is they let themselves get aggravated and they get more and more aggravated thinking, oh, you know, and it's just almost because we do it so frequently and we see other people doing it that it starts becoming a part of what we do. But you can stop that. You can actively not take that frustration with you and remove it from the difficulty of doing this jump. Imagine every single turn is your first turn. Apart from the fact that obviously you've learned things from the previous turns, but you wanna treat it like you're enjoying this experience, and there's no need to get frustrated with yourself. You don't need to add this layer of pressure with you. That's something that you don't need. Another example is, say there's a lot of people around and you start feeling the pressure of the people and you're almost doing it because they're watching and things like this. This is another thing that you don't need, that is just adding on to the stack of blocks of reasons why you can't do something. And all it's going to do is hold you back. So take only with you what you need. Next thing, we kind of touched on this earlier, and that's just the topic of visualization. Now, I know I said it in the form of like the negative and self-fulfilling prophecies, but in terms of actual visualization, this is something that can really, really help and really start making a difference to your moves. So the example that always springs to mind from me is the Kong Prix that I did last year. When I first saw it, it's in Bristol, it's these green rails Kong Prix, you might have seen it. When I first went there and saw it, like I couldn't get myself to do it. It was like really, really terrifying. But then over the next month, I just casually slipped it into my mind that I would be doing it, and like would take opportunities to just think about executing it properly and properly visualizing being able to just Kong the rail and pre it and not running any other scenario through my mind, only the visualization of doing it. And the next time I got there, I went and I did it, and I was super proud of myself, I was super happy, but I think a lot of it came down to that previous visualization. And I've done this with other jumps as well, and it's, like I say, well documented in Olympic athletes. They consistently visualize themselves winning, and that's because your body starts learning to win through those visualizations, because your body reacts to your mind, whether it's visual, whether it's a thought pattern that's not really going on, or whether it's reality. Your body can't tell the difference. So you have to start visualizing your jumps before you do them, and you can do this if it's a jump that you've been building up to for a while. You can do this outside of your training session and just start getting more and more comfortable with it in your mind first. So practice visualization. It's a great tool and it can really help. So one of the main things that causes us fear is actually the fear of the unknown. And a lot of the times when we don't know what's going to happen, our mind fills in the blanks, and usually with something that's a lot worse than what will actually happen. So there's a couple of ways that you can target this. And the first is, if there's the opportunity, do some preps that are going to make you more comfortable with, say, the bounce off of a jump, or, you know, the prep for a jump, or like the mistake that you could make, sort of run it through in a safe way, in a safe environment. So this is what it's like when you sort of, maybe you're going for a running precision and then you bounce down into cat leap. You're showing yourself that actually it's safe no matter what happens, and you can do that physically. But if you're not in a place where you can do it physically, say that it's too high up, or, you know, potentially you can't run through the movement pattern realistically enough, but just because of the situation that can happen, you want to mentally take yourself through doing it badly. Now, I know I've talked about getting rid of those negative scenarios in your mind, but what you want to do first, after you've calmed your mind, after you've relaxed yourself, if you're still having a problem with it, is run through potential negative scenarios and then accept them for what they are. So you want to imagine yourself in what is a realistic way of maybe falling or not quite making it, and then becoming okay with the consequences and going like, okay, I can accept if this goes wrong. If it goes wrong, even if it's bad, I'm actually in a place where that's fine. I'd rather go for the jump. And once you get to a point where you've actually accepted the consequences, you'll find it's actually way easier to go for the move. So visualize it in a practical sense. Don't let your mind run away with itself. This is a fine line to walk, but go through some of the potential negative scenarios and come up with contingency plans. Like, okay, if I'm going to crane, then I know I'm going to grab like this and grab like that, and that's what's going to save me. So run through those contingency plans, get comfortable with what could happen, realistically what could happen, not the fantasy of what could happen, like, oh, I could easily just slip and blow into the road and then get hit by a bus. Like, none of those ridiculous ideas, just what practically could happen and how you could save yourself. Then once you become comfortable with it, go back into that state of no mind, which we talked about earlier, and then focus only, fill yourself only with the positive stories, but just accept that negative outcome first. Don't let the unknown scare you. So all of these tips will bring you into a place where actually you have quite a good solid structure and a good sequence to break down your fear and to manage it consistently. And this will all bring you into a space where you'll get into like a flow state with it. So the more you practice, the more this will build momentum, like I've talked about, the more all of the techniques and tips will intertwine and work together and build this robust structure where you're going out and you have like a solid no mind. You can really quickly assess the negative aspects, dump that story, move into a positive space, completely ground yourself in the physiology, and then go for the move. But the more you do it, the more you'll build momentum, the more you'll get into the flow state of doing it consistently. And watch that momentum, man, because momentum is like really cruel. It can switch so quickly. So just don't let yourself start going in the wrong direction, going in that downward spiral. Start building those positive habits today. Start building on all of the tips that I've given you today, and before you know it, you'll be in a fantastic place where you can flow through and really overcome that fear, really overcome those boundaries. I would absolutely love to know what you thought of this video, guys. I really want to know if it helped you. If you have any fears that this might have helped with, or what your favorite tip is, just comment below. I really want to hear about it, and I'd love to hear any tips that I've missed that other people have managed to overcome in their minds, and anything that could help anyone else. Let's get some community comments going down below. I really want to hear what you have to say about this. Thanks for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Do subscribe if this is something that you enjoyed and that you want to be back for again. Let me know if you want more tutorials, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one. We'll probably go for a more classic parkour journeys, but who knows, if you guys comment and let me know you want more tutorials, I might end up making more of these. So let me know what you thought, let me know what you enjoy, and I'll see you on the next one.